Hi guys, I am so excited to be diving into the Bible with you guys this week. This week we're going to be talking about a boy named Joseph. You might have heard of him before. He's pretty important in the Bible. And I picked this story because it shows the way that God took care of him even when people tried to hurt him, even when people didn't treat him the way he should have been treated. God took care of him anyway, and he'll take care of us too, as we'll see in our story this week. So this is the story of Joseph. Because Abraham trusted God, now I'm going to stop right there because they're talking about Abraham, who is another important guy in the Bible. Now, Abraham was a man who God asked to leave his home and go to an entirely new place where he didn't know anybody else. And you know what Abraham did? He said, okay, God, I'll do that. He trusted God. We're going to find out what happens next. Because Abraham trusted God, he became God's friend. Because Abraham's son Isaac trusted God, he became God's friend too. Then Isaac had a son named Jacob who, you guessed it, learned from his father to trust God. And then Jacob had a son. And then Jacob had another son. And another and another. Jacob had 12 sons in all. Their names were Reuben, Simeon, Levi, Judah, Dan, Naphtali, Gad, Asher, Issachar, Zebulun, Joseph, and Benjamin. That's a lot of sons with a lot of names. Of all of Jacob's sons, Joseph was his favorite. Jacob wanted Joseph to know that he was his dad's favorite. So he gave Joseph a special coat made of all of the colors of the rainbow. This annoyed his older brothers. Why didn't they get special coats? To make matters worse, Joseph told his older brothers about dreams he was having. In his dreams, Joseph saw himself ruling over his brothers. He saw his brothers bowing down to him. Hearing about Joseph's dreams made his older brothers really annoyed and really jealous. So much so that they decided they'd be happier if Joseph wasn't around anymore. So one day, when their dad wasn't with them, they picked Joseph up and threw him into a hole in the ground. They were just going to leave him there forever until they got another idea. Have you ever gotten so mad at your brother or sister that you wanted to sell them to the circus? Well, Joseph's brothers actually did. Except not to the circus. They sold Joseph to some folks traveling to Egypt, who sold Joseph again when they got to Egypt. Now, Joseph had been thrown in a hole and sold twice. What a lousy week. In Egypt, Joseph worked for a very wealthy man. Joseph was honest and hardworking, and the wealthy man liked him. But the man's wife told a lie about him, and Joseph went to prison. Now, Joseph had been thrown in a hole, sold twice, and sent to prison. Why would God let all that happen to Jacob's favorite son? Wasn't Jacob a friend of God? Joseph could have gotten mad and decided he didn't want to be God's friend anymore. But he didn't. He still prayed to God, and he still tried hard to do the right thing. And God had a plan for Joseph. While he was in prison, Joseph told two of the men there the meaning of their crazy dreams. God showed Joseph what those dreams meant. A few years later, Pharaoh, the king of all of Egypt, also had a crazy dream. He'd heard about a guy named Joseph who could interpret dreams. Pharaoh called Joseph out of prison and told him about the dream. Once again, God gave Joseph the meaning. The dream, Joseph said, was a warning. For 7 years, Egypt would grow lots and lots of food, more than they could even eat. But then, for 7 years after that, they would experience a famine, where no food would grow at all. If the Egyptians didn't store up all the extra food during the first 7 years, they wouldn't have enough to eat during the famine, and many people would die. Pharaoh was so happy that he made Joseph the second most powerful person in Egypt and put him in charge of all of the food. Joseph made sure they would have enough to eat when things got tough. When food stopped growing in Egypt, it also stopped growing where Joseph's family lived. They were really hungry, so hungry that they traveled all the way to Egypt to see if they could find food there. And sure enough, not only did they find plenty of food in Egypt, but they also found their brother Joseph. They thought Joseph would be mad at them, but he wasn't. Why wasn't Joseph mad? Because he could see God's plan. If Joseph hadn't been thrown in a hole, sold twice, and then sent to prison, Egypt would have run out of food and many, many people would have died. Joseph's family would have run out of food and they would have died. God used something very bad, the way his brothers treated him, to do something very good, to save Joseph's whole family. Joseph learned that God can use anything, no matter how bad, to do something good. And that's the end of our story. Our everyday truth for today is that when I trust God, he uses the hard parts of my story for his good and for his glory. So when we go through hard things, we know that God has a plan for us and that he will use even the bad things that happen to us for his good and also to glorify him, to show others how good he is. The end.